Hello everyone. Welcome you all to the TechGeek webinar. Thank you for joining the session today. The topic of today's talk is Achieving Mobile App Automation in DevOps. It will be a 1-hour session with around 40 to 45 minutes for the presentation and the remaining time for the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please send them to us using the questions tab on the GoToWebinar control panel. I'm Sabah, the moderator of this session, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our guest speaker today, Mr. Nilesh Tarale, Vice President, Pre-Sales, pCloudy. Nilesh has around 15 years of experience in product development and testing. He has worked primarily in the mobile application testing and mobile device testing domain with companies like Sesken, Motorola, Nokia, Accenture, etc. Nilesh is currently based out of Bangalore. So without any further delay, let's begin the session. Over to you, Nilesh.
Thanks, Sabha, for a quick introduction. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all the participants. Thanks for joining. Today's topic, as Sabha was mentioning, is about achieving mobile application automation in DevOps. We'll be primarily focusing on the testing part here, though we have written here achieving the mobile application automation in DevOps. We'll be primarily looking into the testing part because that's the key here. As you know, most of the industry is working on agile methodology right now. And when you are working in agile, DevOps is the key and continuous testing is the vital part of that particular system. So we will be, as mentioned, we will be focusing more on the continuous testing. Why it is important to do the continuous testing? What happens if the continuous testing is not done completely? How does it affect on the total cost of the product? All such things will be discussed in today's webinar here. So without wasting further more time, let's move on with the agenda slides and then we'll proceed further. So yeah, so the agenda here is we will be starting with the introduction of the pCloudy platform because that's the primary tool which we'll be showcasing here for the DevOps. And we will also see some of the key challenges in mobile application testing, followed by DevOps for mobile app development. We will touch upon the infrastructure part, typically in the testing phase, because that's what we are focusing it on. And lastly, we will see a brief demonstration on how pCloudy can be used in your continuous testing. So we'll probably see how the pCloudy will come into the DevOps, where is the right fitment for pCloudy, and how you can leverage pCloudy to get maximum quality of your product in the DevOps in today's mobile application development lifecycle. So who we are, I mean, quickly, if you just want to understand who we are and what we offer, I just have to say that, we are a product company based out of Bangalore, India. We have a couple of products in our portfolio, and pCloudy is one among them. Now, pCloudy is, we are calling it one of its kind mobile test platform, which can be used by both developers and testers to test their mobile application on targeted devices, real devices, and the networks on different geographies. We do have data centers in 4 geographies in globe. So we have in India, we have Australia, Philippines, and US, and all these are the real devices which are connected to our cloud. And most of the devices do have the real operator SIM, so you can actually connect to these devices and also test your application on the real device, real networks. You can also do both manual and automation testing on this platform. It can this particular platform is pretty feature-rich platform. There are so many features which are integrated with this platform, which will help you to get a lot of statistics and analytics for your testing, be it manual testing or automation testing. And you don't have to really do a lot of testing to get some non-functional data, as in case of performance for example. So if you need certain performance related data while you are doing testing, you don't have to do any extra efforts to get that data. You will be simply doing your normal functional testing or non-functional testing, be it in, as I said, be it in manual or automation way. You will get that particular information as a value add from this platform. And this particular platform, this pCloudy platform, is the perfect fit in the current DevOps situation for mobile application development. We have 500 plus devices available on this platform, so you can choose whatever devices on which you want to do the testing of your mobile application. So by now, 7,000 plus developers and testers across the globe have used this platform. They are continuously using it, and with their usage, the platform is also getting pretty much matured. And we are bringing in a whole lot of new features which these developers are giving the feedback for. Last year, Gartner has included pCloudy in one of their reports, which talks about pCloudy as automation test tool. So that is one of the key achievements we have. So you can probably find that information on the internet also. So let's check what are the key challenges we have in the mobile DevOps environment. Now, as I have mentioned earlier, like the entire industry is moving on to the agile methodology. Everybody is working in the agile way, right? So, and when we say agile, I think there is a simple mantra of agile, which I believe most of you are aware. The key mantra of agile is the software must be in a shippable state at any given point of time. Okay. To achieve this goal, we have to make sure that the software is tested continuously. Now, when we say the software has to be shippable at any given point of time, it means after every sprint, after every release, or after every feature which we are developing, we'll have to make sure that that particular feature is not breaking the existing workflow, or it's not bringing in any regression to the existing software. And once this feature is released, this feature is also working perfectly. So the entire piece of software is in particularly in a shippable state. You are in a position to deliver that software to your client. That's what the software must be in shippable state means. So how are we going to ensure that the software is in shippable state when we are actually working in an agile way? So when we say it should be in shippable state, it means ideally it should be a bug-free software with all the working functionalities which was delivered. The development team will always try to create that feature, and will try to deliver the software with that feature in. They will be doing their part of testing, and they'll say that my feature is done and I'm actually releasing the software for the testing. Now it is the job or the duty of the testing and a QA team who is going to validate whether the given feature is working absolutely fine, and if it is working fine, is it creating any regression in the existing system? So once basically the verdict lies with the testing team. Once the testing team says yes, this is done, this is in a good shape to be released, the product or the software will be released into the market or will be given to the customer. Now, when we are looking at the testing phase, and typically in the DevOps environment, we often get some questions. We typically get these questions. We have to ask ourselves, or somebody else will ask you these questions. And those are the key challenges which we have mentioned it here. So when it comes to these questions which we have to ask ourselves, which testing I should be doing? Should I concentrate on the functional testing or non-functional testing? Yeah. If it's a non-functional testing, then what should I focus on? Is it a localization testing? Is it a performance testing? Is it a load testing? Is it a stress testing? And so on. So I mean, we have to ask these questions, and these are the questions, these are the challenges which we keep facing when we are actually working in the agile way. So to answer this question, yes, ideally we should be testing all. I mean, if your application, I mean, it all depends on the application which is under development or the product which we are developing, depending on the criticality and the functionalities, we have to take a call. But yes, primarily functional testing has to be done and there are certain non-functional tests which has to be done along with the functional testing. But there are different phases. In which phase we should be doing that also, we will be probably seeing it in this particular webinar. The next question comes in mind is, shall I do it in the manual way or should I do it in automation or automatic way? Do I need to do the automation for my testing, or I can still achieve the best quality by using just a manual testing? Okay, you can do it in either ways. Okay, you can do it in either ways. But when we are trying to analyze the DevOps, we must focus on the regression and functional testing in automated way. At least the regression and functional testing has to be automated. That's what the DevOps will expect from any organization, because that's the place wherein you will be continuously checking your regression. That's the place where you are continuously checking your functionalities. Okay, and that's the way where you will be keeping your application always shippable. Now, the non-functional part of that, which may be probably the stress or load or performance or localization, that may not cause the application non-shippable immediately. Yeah, but of course that testing is also important, and if the application is critical, it should also be done parallelly so that you can notify the development team immediately, because the cost of the defect fix increases drastically if it is not found in the right place. That also we will be talking a little later. So the next question comes in my mind is, do I have a right set of devices? What is the market coverage I'm getting with my testing? If I having certain devices with me, am I doing my testing enough on the enough devices, or do I need to do furthermore? So these are the questions which comes into my mind. The next portion comes is like, which tools I should be using for my testing. You know, if it's a manual testing, it's a straightforward, but still you'll need certain tools associated with the manual testing to grab maybe your performance data, or maybe for logs or screenshots and all. So you have to ask this question also: what tools I'll be using it for my testing? And the last which comes is continuous testing. Now we have to understand what continuous testing means, why it is important, where it comes into the system when we are actually looking at the DevOps. Okay, so that's something which will be. What is continuous testing? Okay, so continuous testing is the process of executing automated tests as a part of the software delivery pipeline in order to obtain feedback of the business risks associated with the software which we are releasing as rapidly as possible. Okay, so basically when you say continuous testing, it's a complete process. The testing process is not something which we are talking about when the software is ready for the testing. The testing, this particular process of testing I'm talking about right from the day one till the application is released to the market or to the customer. So the entire process, the entire life cycle of the development life cycle of the application is covered in this testing, and that's when we are calling it a continuous testing, because the testing should start right from your requirement gathering till your application is released into the market. So if you are actually achieving the continuous testing in the way I am explaining, then the defects which you will be finding will be very easy. In terms of fixing it, will be very easy in terms of the cost per defect. So I'll be explaining about the cost per defect chart, which I am presenting it here on the screen right now. Before that, we just wanted to see like what happens if the feedback loop is short. You know, if you're doing continuous testing, the feedback loop is pretty short, and if the defects are found very much in the beginning, as I explained, the cost to fix that is very small. Okay, if the defects are found later, then the cost of fixing the defects increases drastically. There are certain figures on the screen here which you can mention, which you can see it here. I'll be explaining those, what it is, and how it is actually exponentially increasing. Okay, so in this diagram, if you see, if you find the defect very much in the first phase of requirements, right? So when we are actually talking about agile, the requirements, the testing comes into picture right from the first phase of requirements till, and it keeps going on into designing, coding, testing, and maintenance part, right? So when you are actually doing the requirements, the first sprint, for example, where you are doing requirements, you are coming up with the user stories. The testing team is also equally involved, and testing team will also start creating the test cases around that, and they are validating the requirements and the user stories. If there are certain defects which testing team or the development team highlights, it is very easy to fix that. Okay, and if we fix that, let's assume that it is costing me X. Okay, now if this particular defect which I have found it out here now is fixed, it is costing me X. But if it is not found, for example, it's an escape and it goes into the design phase, and now if somebody finds it out on the design or in the design phase, the cost of that will increase by almost 4 times. Now these numbers, if you see from 4x to, it is going to 9x to 71x and 141x in the respective phases like coding, testing, and maintenance. It may be probably unbelievable at this moment to you, but if I explain you why, you will probably get a better understanding. Because when we actually take out the cost per defect, it is typically done as the engineer who is working on this. Let's say a developer whose salary is X, so his per minute or per hour salary is calculated first. Okay, and then how much time he is actually investing to fix that defect. Now, if you multiply that, okay, that's how the cost per defect comes into picture. Now, if you just understand if something is there, let's understand from the testing perspective, because most of us will try to find defects in this and this phase, coding and testing phase. Let's say developer has done some feature development. He has done his part of testing, and he has done all the unit tests and other stuff. And he has actually introduced one defect which is probably not found by him, and it is a miss from him. Now, if it is found by the testing team in the testing phase, in the very first release, the moment he gets the release, the developer who has worked on that feature is on top of that code. He is always having that fresh information in his mind, what he has done, what coding he has done, where it may go wrong. So the moment you provide him any information, he'll do a quick analysis. Since he has worked recently, it will be, he may probably don't have too much more analysis. He can straight away go and fix the defect. It will be done, let's say, in 10 minutes of time. But if we miss that cycle, and in the next cycle, in the next sprint, if the testing team finds the same defect which was escaped, okay, now what happens is the developer may be busy with some other development activities for the next sprint, so he may not get enough time. Or else, if it's a critical defect, he has to typically work on that defect very next moment. So he has to do the switch over. He has to actually switch the context. He is thinking about the problem which is given to him in the next sprint. He has to come out of that. He has to start analyzing the code which he would have done in the last sprint. That sprint may be for 1 week or 2 week sprint. Okay, so in that case, to analyze, to see where to localize the defect and to fix the defect, it may take maybe half an hour or 45 minutes. So if you see, as the time passes, the time to fix the defect is increasing drastically, and that's what is actually bringing in this value. So if you see, if the defects are found in the respective phases by the complete team, maybe testing or development team, okay, the cost to fix the defect is pretty small, else it will keep on exponentially increasing. Okay, now if you see, when we say, I mean, just a buzzword or the phrase for the continuous testing is, you have to say you will be testing it early, testing it faster, testing it often, and try to automate as much as you can, because the more automation is done, it will be easy for you to find the defects and protect the product from getting regressions introduced. Okay, so typically if we follow the continuous testing part, some of the key takeaways will be you will be reducing the cost of bug fixing, you'll be keeping the product shippable all the time, and you will be giving best user experience to your users. So that's what is the continuous testing's advantages. Now coming to the mobile DevOps, this is very important. If you see, this is a very generic diagram or generic workflow which I have presented here. This is how typically, in general, the mobile DevOps systems will look like. We have, if you see the complete cycle, we have a coding part, build, test, then comes into packaging, releasing, configuration, and monitoring. Yeah? And then this is a feedback. This is a feedback loop from where you will be getting the feedback from the market to the development team, so that they can work on that, right? So if you see this particular diagram, we have actually brought into three logical components. Okay, the first part is code and build, which we are calling continuous integration, and the last part, starting from packaging, releasing, configuring, and monitoring, is the continuous delivery. Yeah. And the middle part, which is about the testing, is something which we are calling it continuous testing. So I have written it continuous testing, but if you really look at it, this particular block, this logical block alone is not continuous testing. Continuous testing means the testing activities will start right from the first block, right from coding till monitoring. Okay, so all this while when we are doing testing, that is what we are calling it continuous testing. But I have explicitly written continuous testing here because this is the portion which we wanted to discuss here. I just wanted to explain how you can improve that and what are all different tools or how pCloudy can fit in there to get the maximum returns out of that. Yeah. So as I said, like as software becomes the key of creating a competitive advantage across all markets. So enterprises no longer enjoy the luxury of selecting either speed or quality when they are delivering the software. So both are critical. The speed is also critical and the quality is also critical. Now, since the agile practices are really getting matured and DevOps initiatives, are entering into the corporate agenda every day, continuous integration, continuous testing, and continuous delivery, what I have mentioned it here, have emerged as the key catalyst for enabling the quality at the speed. So of these three, if you see the continuous integration, continuous testing, and continuous delivery or deployment, whatever you call it, continuous testing is by far the most challenging part of the system. The most important is code development, of course. Code review and anything to do with the actual development is closely related with the continuous integration. Okay, so this is what the generally continuous integration is what we call. Now, building an application is an everyday job. That's the sentence spoken about in most of the industry when you are working on the agile. Okay. But this simple statement, when I say building application is an everyday job, has a deeper meaning. If you try to understand, when I say building application is an everyday job, it means you are actually using in the DevOps the CI, but that is continuous integration, continuous development, and continuous testing is working absolutely fine. If all these three things are working absolutely fine, the statement, whatever I have said, is the reality. Okay, is the reality. As long as your entire process is working seamlessly and the way you want, and because ideally you are building, it's an everyday job of building an application because the CI setup, the complete DevOps is in place ideally. So the management and the clients think, This is very easy. Every day, developers can develop a new application because everything is in place. But what happens in the reality is different. The most of the time we have seen most of the organizations they actually start getting good thing about the CI part, the first part. So there are a lot of tools available. So they will be simply start integrating everything there. So CI, if you really see in most of the organizations, is pretty foolproof. Similarly, the continuous delivery mechanism is also pretty much foolproof. What most of the organizations are lacking in is basically in continuous testing, and that's when they are failing. So if this is failing, the statement which I was speaking a little ago does not hold good, because management will be thinking that it's an everyday job, people are doing it, people are and they start giving you aggressive deadlines because of that. But since this is not working, this particular statement falls. Okay, this particular statement falls apart, and then we are not able to give the deliveries the way we want. So in mobile DevOps, organizations use variety of version controls, source code management tools, different practices for emerging code, and notifying everyone about the build status. So that's what is getting covered into coding and build portion. When I say when you set up the complete CI correctly. Okay. When we come to testing, though we are calling this, as I said, like it's a continuous testing, it's not, because it is not restricted only to this. It is actually covered from the first phase to last phase. Okay. So why this testing? When I say, and I have to talk a little more about the testing, what we are targeting here is in each sprint, after every release, the testing has to be done in continuous mode. Now it is up to the project dynamics if you want to do it manual testing or automation testing. Okay, I mean nobody is forcing you to do it completely automation way or from the manual way, but a lot depends on the project dynamics and the size of the project. But the bottom line is testing. Okay, the bottom line is testing. So when we say bottom line is testing, there are a lot of tools which are available for for CI and CD, but not for CD. So as I said, like for CI we have a whole lot of different tools which are available in the market, which you can use it for the continuous integration. Similarly, there are a lot of tools available. Some are open source, some are paid, which are available for the continuous delivery mechanism. But there are very few tools available in the continuous testing because of the key challenges which we have. So if we are neglecting the continuous testing, we have to make sure we also used the test cases in the continuous testing mode, be it automated way or manual way. If you're not finding the right suite of test tools, you can probably do it in the manual way, but you have to make sure that the testing happens continuously in each phase. It has so we'll have to make sure that when you are working on a new delivery of any sprint, there are no defects and no regulations. In the typical setup here, we expect the I mean, as I said, typically in this particular setup, management or testing experts will expect you to automate most of your testing and keep it ready here in the testing phase here. Okay. Now, as the last part here is about packaging, releasing, configuration, and monitoring, which are typically as I said, we are calling it continuous deployment or delivery or release, whatever you call. Now, continuous monitoring, if you really look at it, the last portion here, monitoring, the continuous monitoring provides the sort of data and metrics to organization to evaluate all different functions of the process. So development, operations, testing personnel, and other individuals involved in this process. Okay, so it is important to remember that these metrics should not be measured only in the production, but during the process itself. Okay, this is what we call continuous improvement. So if you're getting some feedback from the monitoring phase, that if we are taking as a feedback and implementing it in our code, that is what we are calling it continuous improvement. Because when we started writing the code for a specific application, we have certain requirements. We started with that, but when it actually got launched to the market and users started using it, they have the user impressions, user perspective. They are giving us certain feedback, certain analytics, which we have to actually incorporate in our product to make sure that the product gets more stabilized. This typical process is what we are calling it as continuous improvement. So if we are doing this process properly as and establish a process something like this, it will be easy for the entire process, entire community to get the software done bug free. Okay, and these are certain things which I wanted to talk here. Okay, now if we actually go to the next slide, wherein we are presenting you the infrastructure. So when we talk about the infrastructure here, okay, I have shown a lot of tools here which are typically used in the DevOps at different stages. Okay, so continuous development and continuous testing can't be achieved without having the right set of DevOps tools. Okay, moreover, it must be backed by a proper device infrastructure. So this is the key. So as I said, like there are so many tools at different stages. I have mentioned it here. Those tools are available in the market. You can Google it and you can get a whole lot of tools available. Some may be free or some may be paid tools. But those tools are not the only success criteria for your complete DevOps. It has to be backed up by the proper device infrastructure. That's why you can see here I have written real mobile devices. So if you see, there are so many tools. As I said, typically for the development, based on the requirements, you can select whatever IDEs you want. Similarly, for version controls, you can actually check with your company, because every company has their own preferences for the version control. When it comes to CI, we have seen mostly Jenkins is used for its own advantages, but there are quite a few tools available in the market which you can use instead of Jenkins, like Bamboo, Cruise Control, Chef, Hudson. Yeah. The most important part here is the tools for automation. If you see the tools for automation, because that's what we are targeting right now, and the real devices. Okay. Again, all of us have choice in automation tools. As I said, like depends on what product you are developing, what is the size of the product, what is the time to market. A lot depends on that to choose a specific test framework. Okay, so based on your requirement, you can go and choose the specific frameworks. I have mentioned some of them here, which has been widely used by the industry, like APM, Calabash, and RoboTM. But APM is something which most of the industry is using right now. Okay, so when we are choosing a specific framework, we have to make sure that that particular framework suits to your project. Do you have the right fitment of the skill sets to develop the test scripts in that particular framework or that particular language or script which they are using? And then we'll have to figure it out and use that particular framework to automate your test cases. When we have seen APM, as I said, like it's the test framework which is used widely, because it supports both native, hybrid, and web or web app automation. Okay, so based on all these factors, you can probably go and choose the right framework which is required for your automation. Now, coming to the test execution, this is very important. Coming to this test execution part is very important, because what we have seen in the industry is most of the testing is either done on the very limited set of real devices. Some of the, most of the companies or most of the testing teams will have certain finite set of devices on which they will be doing their testing. Now, irrespective of the application, they'll be using the same devices. They might at max upgrade the OS version if it is available in the market, but then they'll always have a limited set of devices. Or in combination with the emulators, right? We have seen a lot of companies are doing testing only on emulators also, which is not recommended at all. Okay, now is it enough to do the testing on devices which are available with me? This is the question you'll have to ask yourself. We strongly believe that the majority of the testing has to be done on the real mobile devices. Okay, looking at the plethora of the devices which we have in the market right now, we have to be very carefully select the right devices, both in terms of quantity and the OS version specifications. Okay, now I'm seeing the devices. This is what even pCloudy says, like the testing has to be done on the real devices for its own reasons. First and foremost is the application which you are developing is not going to use by your customers on emulators. They'll be using that application on the real devices. So you'll have to make sure that you actually test on the real devices. Now, if you see the plethora of the devices, the landscape of the devices here, we have so many devices, we have so many variations of the devices, we have so many different screen sizes. So based on these configurations, each device stands unique in the market. Okay, so it is not necessarily that your application, if it is working on Samsung Galaxy S5, will definitely work on Samsung Galaxy S7. Okay, because a lot of things are changed at the API level by the Google and also by the manufacturer. So you'll have to make sure that your application does work on all these devices. So it's a big challenge because you cannot practically test your application on all the possible devices, yeah, in the market. So you have to make sure that you test it on finite set of devices, but it should be a real devices. So one way is either you can invest in these devices, have those devices locally connected to your system or to your test systems and test it, or else you can use any of the such platforms which provides you the devices remotely. We do provide that, and pCloudy does provide that, and pCloudy has got its own little advantages. So you don't have to invest in mobile app devices. We will provide the devices to you. You can run your test automations parallelly on multiple devices. You get your statistics of tests, be it manual testing or automation, and we also provide you some non-functional statistics in terms of performance data for your application. The most important is we will also help you. This is very important and important factor here. We will help you to get, if you are looking for that, pCloudy will also help you to get the limited set of devices which you should be testing your application on based on your requirement. Like if you want to target India as your primary market and you are saying that I want to cover 50% of Indian market, we will give you a list of devices which will cover 50% of Indian market. Tomorrow, if you want to test your application only for the European region, let's say you just wanted to target England, for example, so you can probably get the list of devices. Let's say you want to target only 30% of the United Kingdom or England, for example. So you can get the list of devices which will cover 30% of the England market. So these kind of informations we are providing you with the help of pCloudy on our platform. Sorry. Yeah. So with this, I have actually done with the infrastructure part here. Now, coming back to the, as I said in the beginning, we will be actually looking into a small demonstration, wherein we will be explaining you about the pCloudy's fitment into your CI. So if you see this particular slide, wherein I'm saying it's about tests. So in the continuous automation framework, what happens is you will be having some CI tool, maybe Jenkins or Hudson or Chef, as I was mentioning earlier. So if you take, for example, Jenkins, so pCloudy do have the plugin, close integration with Jenkins, so you can actually trigger your automation testing from Jenkins to pCloudy, and you will see that the test automation is running on the pCloudy's remote device cloud on the device cloud, and you'll also be able to see the test execution happening on the remote devices. So I'll be demonstrating you that part now. So I have opened Jenkins. I've already created a job in the interest of time because we have little less time. So this is the portal for pCloudy, wherein you can actually log in with your registered credentials. You'll have to register with pCloudy to get these credentials, and once you get the credentials, you can log in with your credentials. In the meantime, okay, so it has got logged in. This is the typical home page here, and we can probably go out to the devices to get the real device and do the manual testing. If you need some more information on this, probably you can connect me directly. We will get into that. But to focus on the current webinar here, let's go back to Jenkins. So this is the Jenkins I have. Now we have something called Manage Jenkins. So you'll have to go to Manage Jenkins, and you can go to Configure Systems or Manage Plugins here, and you can download the pCloudy plugin, which is available freely, and you can install that. Once you install that and go back here, you can actually create a new project, maybe Jenkins demo pCloudy, and just choose the project. Once you do that, say OK, you will start seeing in the build the execute test tutorial pCloudy. This is what is coming from our plugin. So if you click that, you can probably have to give the cloud URL, your user credentials here, API key, CLI path for your complete automation application, the application path, and duration. Like your testing, let's say, gets over in 10 minutes, then probably you'll have to write 10 minutes here. You can just increase the time here, and you can also select which device you wanted to target the testing on, whether it is Android platform or iOS platform. Based on that, it will start giving you the options to select the devices. So this is how you can create the job. We will not get into more details here. We'll just try to see how we can trigger it from the Jenkins in the interest of time. So I'm going back to Jenkins here. I have already created a job here, so you can probably quickly go and see. This is pCloudy demo. Okay, we have already run so many builds here. Now, when you want to create a job, as most of you are aware that you can create a job here, you can configure the build, and once you start the job, you say build now. Your build will be scheduled here, and if I click this, you can go to the console output, and you can see probably now this Jenkins pCloudy CI execution is happening here, and it is saying it is booked one device for me, and it will start. You'll start following the logs here. Now, at the same time, as I said, this is a APM. So if you can go to pcloudy.com, that's when I logged in here, and go to live view. This is what I was talking about. If you go to live view, okay, the execution cycle, which is created by Jenkins, will start appearing it here. And if you click on this button here, we will show you the, unless it is not done, it is already started execution. So if I just click it here, you will start seeing the device which I have chosen, and I say live view, you will start seeing the live view of that particular device. So this is a very small use case wherein we are just trying to identify or search the flight from Mumbai to Bangalore to Delhi. Okay, so this is what we are actually checking it from here. This particular automation is actually happening on the real device, yeah, and it's actually connected to our cloud from India. Now, you see the automation is done. The first test case, we have just one test case in this unit. It is done. Okay, we have two test cases here, I believe. Yeah. Okay, so this is getting executed, and if you go to Jenkins, you can see, yeah, the same test case we are executing it twice just to show you, two test cases there. So one test case is executed, the second test case is in progress, and you can also go and monitor it from here. So this is how you can use Jenkins and pCloudy together in your CI setup or in your mobile DevOps. Now, as I said, there are a lot of advantages of pCloudy. One thing is you are getting the devices provided by pCloudy, which is spread across 4 different locations. Then you are getting a lot of tools along with these devices. You are getting capability to execute your test cases on multiple devices parallelly. And once, as I said, now this particular test, whatever I have done, it was a functional testing just to test a specific scenario, right? Which you would have probably noticed it here. And the test script we have written is also a plain single functional test script which says, find this particular element, go to the search, put a text to Bangalore to Delhi, and get the results, right? That's it. When you have such kind of results, when you have such kind of test scripts, we are also providing you certain information, very vital information, and that's what I wanted to quickly show, and then come to the questions probably. Yeah, so if I go to reports and go to automation reports, this is the test execution which we have just done some time back. So if I double click it, you will be seeing a report which is available on pCloudy, wherein you will get a performance report, a session video. So the entire test cycle execution is getting recorded automatically, and the video will be available here. So you can refer offline whenever you want what kind of automation has done on the device. You will get complete device logs, APM log, and APM standard error logs. And at the same time, as I said, performance, if I click on this icon, you are going to get the CPU consumption, memory consumption, and battery consumption. Okay, so this is a vital information which we are providing to every customer on be it manual testing or functional automation testing. This information you are getting it by default, and once the execution is over, you can also go and verify your test report from your Jenkins tool. This is how the consolidated report will be presented to you. Okay, so I think it is opening in a minute, but I am actually done with my presentation here. So Sabha, I think it's to you to get the question and answer session because we are running short of time.
Thank you so much, Nilesh, for such an insightful presentation. You can take up the questions now. They are displaying in the question panel.
Hello.
The question.
Okay, I think. Yeah, Sabha.
Yeah, Nilesh. So, are you able to see the questions in the question panel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So, thanks Sabha for making it visible to me. Okay, so we have got. Oh my God, we have got a whole lot of questions here. Good to see that. Let me just see what question. Okay, can we? There is a question by Sandeep Polepalli. Can we perform iOS automation testing through Windows? So through Windows, iOS automation is not possible. You should have the Windows Mac machine with you to connect your devices if you want to do it locally. But if you are using pCloudy platform, for example, okay, then it is irrespective whether you are using Windows platform locally or you are using Ubuntu or Mac. You can use any platform, any operating system, and you can still use pCloudy to automate and run your iOS automation on any iOS devices on pCloudy. Okay, there is a question by George Jacob. He's asking what is Calabash. So Calabash is also a open source test framework which is used, which was rather widely used by now till APM comes into picture for the test automation for both Android and iOS. But because we are not getting the kind of support as we are getting it in APM, now most of the players have moved into APM. Okay, one more question by Praveen Mora. He's asking how is non-functional testing is taken care using pCloudy. So Praveen, we have the pCloudy platform as such is meant initially for the functional testing. Okay, so you can do complete functional testing typically the way you can do it with the phone in hand, but there are certain non-functional aspects to it which I have shown you some time back, like you can see the performance graphs, right? So when you are doing a normal functional testing, you can actually get non-functional statistics in terms of CPU consumption, memory consumption, battery consumption, and frame rate count, and also data consumption. Okay, so this information, key vital information, you are getting it at the device level or the application level, which you can use it while doing your functional testing. In case you are referring to interrupt testing as non-functional testing, that is pretty much possible in pCloudy. Okay. The next question is, okay, Sudhir Chakram has asked a question: do we need to share our complete code with pCloudy.com for testing in multiple devices? No, you don't have to share your code with us. You have to just create the APK or IPA file if you're testing it on Android or iOS device, and the entire infrastructure, I mean, the CI setup will be in your premises. If you're not using CI, if you're using a standalone automation also, so you can actually trigger it from your local systems, Eclipse, for example, and you will be connecting to pCloudy. So only your application, which is maybe APK or IPA file, will get uploaded on the device, real device, and your testing will start, because we will be having a APM server running on our pCloudy servers. I hope I have answered your question. Next question is by Mr. Roy. Are all the automation tools licensed versions, or can we test also in open source tools? So yeah, I mean, not all the automation tools are licensed versions. There are quite a few available in the market which are open source. You can very well go and use it. Like APM, as I was mentioning, it's an open source tool. You can use it. One question by Mr. Periya Swami. He's asking, also explain about performance testing for mobile app testing. So I think this particular webinar is not meant for that. Probably we'll have one more webinar where we will explain more about the performance testing. Okay. There is a question by Mr. Shantappan. What is the maximum percentage of automation possible for post-production deployment activities in any of your recent key case studies? So, Shantappan, I don't have the answer ready with me. I don't have the key numbers right now with me. Probably I'll get back to you on this maybe after this webinar. Yeah, there is a question by Vaibhav Deshmukh is asking, does tester is involved in any kind of coding in DevOps? So Vaibhav, the answer to this question is a little tricky. I mean, when you are referring tester, and if you are considering that his job is only to test, and if you are referring to only manual testing, then no, he is not involved in any of the coding in DevOps. But if he is if he's involved into automation, yes, he is involved into decoding, right? Because when you are writing automation scripts, that is also nothing but decoding, which you are doing it for your product. The next question is by Ashwin. He's asking, is it possible to test or automate only the APIs and explore test the UI? Okay, is it possible to test automate only the APIs and explore test the UI? I'm not very sure what exactly you're asking in the second half of your question, but yes, it is possible to automate only the APIs also. There are companies who are doing it and they're concentrating only on the API testing also, and they're pretty much automating it. Next question is by Vishal Garg. If all the devices are unique and testing on emulator does not make much sense, then how we can test our app on all devices? Is it feasible? So Vishal, that's what I was explaining in my presentation earlier, saying it is practically not possible for anyone on the earth to test their application on each and every device available in the market. Because if somebody does that, then he'll not be able to launch his market in the his application in the market at all. Okay, so there has to be, the testing has to be done on finite set of devices, of course, but certainly not on emulator, because that's not what the users are going to use it. It has got its own limitations. Okay, you cannot use certain hardware features like camera, for example. You cannot use it if your application is using it, right? So you'll have to make sure that you test it on the real devices. As I was mentioning, we do have a mechanism wherein we can also guide you to test your application on a finite set of devices, which will give you a coverage of maximum devices available in the market. Okay, that also depends, like what is your target audience. If it's the the geography is in India or Europe or Asia, you'll have to mention that, and at the same time you'll have to also see what is my audience age group. If it is from 18 to 25, then we can also provide you certain set of data which will be focused only for that age group. So in this way, it will be easy for you to come up with a proper set of devices on which you can test and make sure that your application will indeed work on most of the devices available in the market. Okay, so we don't have much more time. We have got a whole lot of questions. Thanks for your questions. I'll be reading the last question now, and I'll make sure that I will be answering rest of the questions to other participants by one-on-one. So the last question for this webinar today is by Pravina Mora. How is non-functional testing is taken care using pCloudy? I believe this question was asked by somebody else also, so let's skip this and take another question. Okay. Sridhar. Okay, the last question of the seminar is asked by Sridhar, which is like, what is the future of DevOps? Does it going to create more jobs opportunities in future? So this is a very tricky question, Sridhar. In a way, yes, because it will bring in a whole lot of opportunity for the automation test engineers, but at the same time, it is from the manual testing to answer. I believe you got the answer from my explanation here. Thank you. Over to you, Saba.
Thank you so much, Nilesh, for this really empowering and motivating session today. I would also like to thank all our participants for making this webinar a great success. This session has been recorded and the recording will soon be available on techgeek.com. Thank you everyone for joining us.